What is happening, my good people? I got the glasses on. Might as well just take those off right about now. Welcome. Here we are on the eve of an anniversary, which I am ecstatic. I am certainly looking forward to with bated breath, considering that we're now less than 24 hours away. At this time, I'll be into hour number 5 of the live stream. And if you do the math, I'm sure you could probably think that, oh, wait a second. He's actually going to start at this particular time. Well, I'll get into that in a second. Let me just pull up the chat and see if anybody's going to jump on board just yet. Well, first and foremost, let me throw this out here. Yeah, as you see in the banner there below. Welcome as I get into, this is an impromptu live stream. I figured let me just throw this out here only because I could post it on my socials, just a quick blurb or what have you. But I figured that I owe it to you guys and gals, whether you're my day ones or this is your first day, to clue you in on what is going to transpire, take place tomorrow. As to think 7 years will be as long as I've been doing this podcast. And yes, I'll get into all that tomorrow, my thoughts, feelings, overall, just complete overview of what the 7th anniversary means, what it means for the podcast moving forward. And I get it. It's just another year. People can look at birthdays like, well, I just turned whatever, 28 or 38, or it's just a number. It is, but you know what? As I like to say, if you keep counting, that means you're doing pretty good. When you stop counting, that's the problem. And of course, the last thing I want to do is have any issues when it comes to the thing that I love to do the most, the reason why I quit my job to pursue this full time and put a platform that I know is my voice, that I control, that I do on a day in, day out basis. And just to be able to do this is a complete blessing. So with that being said, let's jump right to it. As far as what we're going to look forward to tomorrow, as I pull up my banners. And of course, for those who are watching the replay, leave a comment, post whatever it is that's on your mind, any thoughts, any suggestions, whatever it may be, questions. I'll be more than happy to follow up because I will have the thread afterwards on the Instagram account. So I could just, or not even Instagram, on the YouTube account, but of course, via Instagram and other social media platforms that I have, I'll be able to follow up with whatever it is that you're going to post. So please, even if you're watching this and like, what am I going to get out of this? Or no, please, you're going to get plenty out of this on top of any suggestions that you may have. Please just throw it in the chat room. As you can see there, those that will be watching on replay. But as far as the events of tomorrow, I finally have not only secured a spot, and no, I'm not doing it in a restaurant. Maybe one day, who knows, maybe for 8, God willing, or 9, or even 10. Imagine that, get to the 10th anniversary. I would love to do it at a location to have people come by, stop by, make it an event. And listen, I know despite the fact that it being 7 years, it's not as if I have any type of recognition or a name that any establishment will look to me and say, hey, go host your event. They're going to look at me as like, Jay Reels, who are you, whatever. And that's fine. Because again, I'm continuing to build brick by brick, layer by layer. And when we get to a certain point with the Lord's will, then yes, I could be able to host at a particular, whether it be restaurant or bar or a venue that I know I could have, invite a bunch of people to come down. We'll all bask because obviously with your support and what you've been able to do for the podcast over the years, whether it's share it with people, whether it's obviously listen and just spread the word, of course, it goes a long way. And you know that I truly am grateful and thankful for all your support throughout all these years. So with that being said, let's get right to it. I know that when I've been able to secure this spot and I want to get a time frame, and I know originally on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, I said 12 to 7 was the range, but I'm going to go 2 to 7 tomorrow. And I know it's a Saturday. And I know in the Northeast, it's going to be mild. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people out and about. Sure, you're going to hit your favorite establishment, restaurant, etc., for brunch or lunch or early dinner, whatever it may be. But I hope you can take me with you because obviously in this day and age of technology, all you got to do is just take a device, and even if you just happen to prop it up on the table, listen to it, you want to chime in, of course, there's that chat option. So for those out there who want to listen to the live stream, and we'll go through the particulars in a moment, you have the opportunity to do so. Obviously, all the links are going to be about. I'm going to post later on tonight, and of course tomorrow morning. All the links on my socials, obviously here on the YouTube channel at J Reels, as well as Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the J Reels podcast. Also J Reels on Instagram too, for those who are interested. And then Twitter, J Reels1, just the number. And obviously, I will make sure that all of my ducks will be in a row to have it posted for everybody to click onto tomorrow, 2 p.m. That's when it's going to launch. I'm going to go 5 hours. And throughout the course of the 5 hours, obviously, I'll reminisce a little bit. I'll talk about day one and what that was. And actually, my first podcast was an introduction to the podcast universe, because it was one of those things where, what direction could I go? Should I start talking about sports? Should I just kind of talk about me, and not necessarily me per se, but just, my journey up until that point, what I've done prior to that. And I believe it's about a 28-minute episode. Possibly I may even post that tomorrow and on my socials, just for everybody, if they want to go back in the archives. And I haven't even listened to it, so I cannot even imagine what that episode would sound like. I'm sure it's brutal. It'll be like nails on a chalkboard. But I know that was the beginning, and now full circle with a live stream of all things. And yes, it's going to be celebratory. I hope a lot of people could jump on board. I hope a lot of people will chime in, chat room, etc. And even though posting this here or having this live stream now, 6 o'clock on a Friday, where I'm sure a lot of people are out and about, whether they're here in the Northeast, they're on the commute home, or wherever you guys and gals may be, you may be in the middle of stuff, but that's all right, because it doesn't matter. I am broadcasting this to be able to post for those who are curious, for those who are interested to know what is going to transpire tomorrow. And of course, not only are we going to have a little bit of reflection, but of course, where the podcast is going, where these live streams are going, because considering this is now my, fourth live stream overall. I did the instant reactions after the Steelers loss to the Ravens. Then, of course, I did a instant reaction to Super Bowl 59 with the Eagles beating the Chiefs, as you know. And then I did just an overview of what to expect. And then now the official details of the live stream for tomorrow. And I don't know who's on board. I hope they can listen to me. I actually, just for the record, for those who tuned in on Wednesday's live stream, I had some technical difficulties from the start because I was using my Sony camera as well as the mic, an external mic that would obviously, to me, I think would be a lot better than using the Yeti mic. And I wish somebody could jump on board just to either wave and say, yeah, we hear you loud and clear, or there's a bit of interference or whatever it may be, because unlike having the Yeti mic, which I have here connected, ready to go just in case, for those out there, you're not able to hear me, and hopefully I'll have somebody jump in the room and we could chat about it. But for tomorrow, after the introduction, talking about the journey a little bit of these past 7 years from episode 1, and I already have, 545 episodes in the books. I also have a couple of guests. I have one guest scheduled for 5:30, another one that I'm still in the midst of scheduling, and he'll be a very interesting guest. He's a fellow podcaster, my guy, Jai Shields. He's already confirmed, but we haven't confirmed the time. Thank you so much to Nancy. Let me give you a quick shout. Thank you. No problem. So looks good, sounds good, because I'm also using a different camera. Here's the other backup that I have, which is a webcam, but I'm using my Sony cam. So I'm glad to hear that I'm coming through loud and clear. It doesn't sound echoey or high-pitched or anything like that. So I sincerely appreciate it as I'm looking down the chat and not looking at the camera. But with that being said, yes, I am going to have those couple of guests. The one guest actually had a big-time prominent radio talk show. Thank you. Appreciate it, Nance. I know we got to talk, too. Nance's blood. She goes back to even when I did my Instagram live streams, for those who are following here. So thank you, Nancy. But the good thing is that with my guests and having him possibly talk about his recent guest that he had, who is a prominent radio Hall of Famer. So we will talk about that. Of course, a little bit of sports. And who knows? It's going to be 5 hours. We're going to talk about a bunch of different things. And as Nancy could attest to, I understand it's going to be generated around the podcast itself. If it does go in different directions, I'm open to it. People come in the chat room and they start asking questions or want to talk about whatever. I don't know. The Oscars are Sunday night, who are like, as far as Best Picture or whatever else is going on, we could discuss that. So although, yes, we could talk about sports, we could talk about what's happening, latest, greatest there. But all in all, it's a culmination of the 7 years, the journey to where I'm at, and also where we're going to go from here, which I'll also discuss. And then I also have 2 giveaways. And Nancy, I know I owe you a shirt. And to think when I saw you, beginning of last month, I didn't even think to bring it. So I do owe you a shirt. And speaking of which, the shirt that will be in display for a couple of points as far as the giveaway goes, we'll have some trivia. So I'll give away a couple of shirts throughout the course of the 5-hour live stream. So we'll have that to get into as well. And yeah, so between the guests, between the giveaways, a little reminiscing, and also have a third guest who right now, as a matter of fact, I know left me a message, so I got to listen to it in preparation for this. I wasn't able to answer it and get the confirmation from my third guest to see whether or not he's going to hop on board. But if that's the case, that one will really be fantastic because that particular guest is near and dear to my heart and also a big influence on not only just this podcast, but just my complete journey when we go back to my days from 2001 to 2008 when I was doing internet, not even internet radio. That was 08 to 13 when I was doing independent radio from a community center in the Bronx where the range was probably a 10-block radius. That's how far it stretched on an AM dial. And then from there, I went to internet radio, and then I did some AM work out on Long Island. And then, of course, the podcast that started March 1st, 2018. So that is my whole journey. This goes back now 24 years. So we'll discuss all that, get into it. And like I said, I'm just beyond grateful to have this platform, to have this opportunity to do so. And again, I'm looking forward to seeing a bunch of people there tomorrow. And again, I know this was the last minute, unlike the other day where I know I had a bunch of people coming in and out, which was great. And that's fine. It's all good. It doesn't matter. Even if I talk to myself for 5 hours tomorrow, the point of the matter is that I'm here. I'm present. This is for you guys, and gals, for those who have supported, for those who have just backed me, whether it be from the beginning, somewhere in the middle, or even as early as today. I cannot stress enough how much I'm completely grateful, thankful, etc., for your support. And I will continue to pump out content. Of course, the podcast twice a week, but I'll also give an update on future live streams. And I know I've been trying to take a lay of the land when it comes to that because I've done my live streams at 12 noon on Wednesdays. But knowing that there are a lot of streamers out there and the prime time for streaming, and I get it. It could be random or it's even arbitrary for that matter because it's not as if it's like TV where they have prime time from 8 to 10. I guess in the live stream circles it is, but sometimes people go live in the middle of the day or sometimes even in the middle of the night for that matter. But of course, that depends on the type of following that you have. And Lord knows I have a very, very small following, and that's all good. And I will continue to build and grow and hopefully get to a point where it doesn't matter. I could go on at 2 a.m. here Eastern time, or if I happen to be out in the West Coast or somewhere in the South Pacific, who knows for that matter, that yes, I could just pop on my camera or go on my phone and just do a live stream and just babble back and forth and away we go. So that's what I have here for tomorrow. Let me see if there's anything else I need to bring up. So yes, 2 to 7 tomorrow, 5 hours. And Lord knows, people were probably thinking from the start, I was wanted to go 12 to 7, but because of the arrangement that I had, I should say, I wanted to be fair towards the particulars that are going to be involved with me hosting this live stream. So if it was a situation where I knew I could go 7 hours, or even 12 hours at the thing, I wanted to be super ambitious to go 24. So from midnight, let's say midnight tonight through 11:59 seconds there tomorrow night, that's what I really wanted to do. You want to talk about ambition, but I wanted to go big or go home. And I figured 7 hours would have been even better because it would have been synergy to the 7th anniversary of the podcast. But then I had to give myself time to set up to where I'm going. I didn't want to be in a rush. I didn't want to say, all right, 12 o'clock, but then here I am fumbling, bumbling, and rumbling to get to where I need to go and then to set up. And not to say that I have an elaborate setup by any stretch, but you know how things go. Technical situations where, oh, I forgot a cable. Or, oh, wait, now I need batteries. Or, oh, I forgot my adapter for my laptop, where right now I'm going without the adapter. But again, this isn't going to be a 5-hour live stream. So all I know is that I wanted to make sure that this was going to be streamlined as seamless as possible. I didn't want it to be a thing where I was going to be just roaming around, trying to find this, put together that, make sure that once I got to where I'm at, that I had plenty of time, ample time to set up and even eat for that matter. Because yes, I'll have a couple of bathroom breaks along the way, but it's not as if throughout those 5 hours, I'm going to say, all right, guys, I'll be back in a half hour. No, if anything, maybe I'll give myself 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on how things go. And who knows, I may just wing it as far as I could go, as long as I could go. Because again, I'm not here to try to cheat you guys and gals out. I want to make sure that I am present, that I'm going to be live for a bulk. And yes, I get it. A bathroom break here or there is fine, but certainly not going to cheat you guys and gals out of your time that you're going to invest and, of course, spare to listen to me, to listen to what's going on, to listen to the guests that are on, maybe even the giveaways if you happen to be on at that time. So, yeah, that's what is going to entail for tomorrow. So you got 2 p.m. start, you got a little flashback, you got just an overall summary, full circle to where I'm at now. And then the first guest, I'll try to get in maybe within that first hour, if not maybe at the top of that second hour, as I know that I got to confirm that time with that particular guest. And then, of course, with the third guest, I got to make sure when I could fit him in, if he's available throughout the course of the afternoon, early evening. And then I have another guest, which has been confirmed for 5:30 p.m. And those guests are sports related. They are in the business. They are, when I say in the business, one works for a publication, digital publication now, but back in the day, and I even throw this out at you, works at the Sporting News. Remember the Sporting News people? Yes, back in the day. And she's actually been on my podcast before, so I'm having her come out, talk a little baseball, talk a little bit about what she's got cooking as far as her career goes. And then with my first guest, he's a podcaster. He's been around. He's actually been an old guest of mine, but he just recently had a big-time guest on his show, and has actually had him a few times. And I want to talk about that dynamic with he and his guest, Radio Hall of Famer. So that should be interesting. And then the third guest, like I said, near and dear to my heart, if all goes well. Yeah, Juan Soto, my guy, James. If that was the case, and James, I guess I'm coming through loud and clear because Nancy jumped on and she says I look good, sound good, because based on the other day, and listen, I'll give a shout out. His Nancy, looking at the 2 girls, is that right? Yeah, I don't have my glasses on. I took them off at the start. So Nance, good shout. I appreciate that. And then my guy, James, Juan Soto. Yes, that would be fantastic. Imagine I had Juan Soto on. Please, I think I may break the internet if that's the case. But no, with that being said, the day is already aligned. The day is already set up. Looking forward to what is going to transpire here. Let me put that back up here. And yeah, I wish there was a few more things I could add. Maybe I could talk about some sports that took place today. I know Matthew Stafford signed or is going to stay as he restructured his deal in LA. Giants going for Aaron Rodgers. This actually talks about that. And James, I know you're not happy about that. I mean, I cannot even fathom why the Giants would go there, considering that he's going to be a Jet reject, and now you're going to have him go across the other side of the tunnel or the other side of the corridor to be under center for the Giants come week 1 next year. Yeah, exactly. And he says it best, people, right here, right now. I mean, I wouldn't want him either. And there's been rumors about Rodgers maybe even going to Pittsburgh. I certainly don't want him. I will pass. No mas, no good. Thank you for that. But yeah, you had that going on. You have a big game tonight in the NBA, Celtics and Cavs. So the Cavs will be the 1 seed when it's all said and done. But considering they are 1-2 against Boston this year and 0-1 in Boston so far throughout the season, I think this is more of a test for Cleveland. And considering that the last time these two teams played in Cleveland last month, the Celtics pretty much were in control of that game. And let's see, it's going to be an interesting matchup. I think, does it mean big picture, is this something to keep our eyes on? If the Celtics do win tonight, absolutely not, because the next time they'll play will be in a conference final, and that won't be until the latter part of May. So, yes, you could take that for what it's worth, but at least for right now, it's just interesting sports talk and interesting fodder if the Celtics do happen to win tonight, whether it's close or they win going away. And obviously, if the Cavs win and put it on the Celtics, then that will plant the seed in the NBA fan and think, oh, well, we could talk about Boston maybe being this far of a gap with Cleveland, but if Cleveland wins, you know. But then, again, when we get back to the latter part of May and these two teams do face off, nobody's going to think about the regular season games. They may say, yeah, they were 2-2 or Celtics were 3-1, whatever. But, right, what does that mean overall? Nada. Zero. Zilch. So we don't have to get ourselves consumed about that. So what else can I tell you? Guess that's pretty much it. Let me see if we got any other banners up here. I know I said what's happening in sports. Of course, please subscribe to the channel for those who have not done so, and these are for the ones who are watching the replay. So again, I would sincerely appreciate you subscribe, rate, like, leave a comment, etc. And again, for those who are watching the replay, please do that. I'll be more than happy to follow up, as I usually engage with everybody who is on my YouTube channel. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it, people. This wasn't going to be a long, drawn-out thing unless I had a ton of people flooding the chat where people had questions or people had just observations or suggestions or whatever it may be. So I will sign off at the bottom of the hour at 6:20 right now. So at 6:30, I'll sign off. I thought it said 6:30. Again, glasses. And maybe we'll, you know me, can't take life seriously. I'm probably going to reflect. I actually just got these glasses within the last, 4 months? November? I think I'm November. So yeah, talking about almost 4 months ago, considering March is tomorrow. Yeah, bad business. This is what happens when you look at screens all day and when you're looking on your phone. And yeah, I figured, hey, what the hell? Let me get a pair of glasses. Oh my God, Nike. Yes. Cheers to you. Yes, it is water. It's certainly not vodka. Although maybe I'll have a celebratory beer tomorrow. Maybe I'll bring one for the live stream tomorrow just to crack it open, maybe right from the start. Who knows? But definitely, I'm not trying to come out here with a buzz and act all silly and goofy, etc. But yeah, Nike, I appreciate it, man. Obviously, with all your support, James, of course, Nancy, everybody. But my thing is, as I go to the bottom of the hour, the glasses, yeah, it's weird because when I do the podcast, sometimes I have the laptop in front of me, and sometimes I got to look and I got to squint, and I'm over here like suffering to try to figure out what it is I'm trying to read and to think. Old age, man, you're getting up there, J Reels, and to think with the month of March, and I know it's a big month for me, not to get all personal, but for those who do not know, March is always a big month. I look at that as more of a transition as we look forward to spring. And although I know it's felt a little bit more like spring in the last couple of days, and even tomorrow for that matter, as the tri-state area will be probably in the mid-50s. But yeah, just a lot of introspection, similar to what I've been doing with the podcast and, you know, just thinking about life and thinking about just a bunch of different things. I celebrate a birthday at the end of next month. So that's always something that I do not take for granted and always look forward to and always embrace. Because if you're getting older, that means hopefully, A, you're getting wiser. But more importantly, if you're getting older and if you keep counting, like I said earlier, that means you're doing well. But that's for then. But I know March, again, when I talk about transition, I talk about not only spring coming, we turn the clocks up, but I also then challenge myself on a bunch of different things, gratitude lists, as well as just exercise. I'm planning to, ready for this? I guess I'll throw this out here right now. I'm planning to run 100 miles next month, not in one day, although that's one of my goals, but to spread myself out because Lord knows I have not run that much this year. And if you followed the channel, and last year I had a stress fracture. It's actually on one of my vlogs. If you go back to Escape to Florida, I had parts 1 and 2. Part 1, you don't see me break my foot, but obviously you see the aftermath of that and what took place. So I was on the show for 3 months where I couldn't run, and it was just psychologically demoralizing. And then I've been able to get back to running toward the latter part of last year, and in the start of this year, I've only ran a handful of times, but Lord knows, tomorrow, want to get the month off to a good start, maybe just crank out 5 before I get everything set for the live stream tomorrow and get that off and running so where I could get my Saturday, my first day of the month, and of course the month of March off in good stead. But yeah, that's what I got, people. Besides that, just been anticipating this day. I know I haven't really broadcast this a lot. Yeah, maybe in the last few days I get it. And maybe even as early as 10 days ago, because I know sometimes when you see other people, whether they're influencers or content creators, they're always posting. And I get it. I understand. I got to kind of pimp myself, you know, pop the collar, etc. Even though I'm not wearing a collared shirt, but you get the drift. And in order for me to get my name out and to really just get the podcast, etc., I got to inundate people's timelines or walls or their feeds with all this stuff. And yeah, I'm one that I'm not going to pat myself on the back, even though I understand people would say, like, well, if you're not doing that, why are you having this anniversary? Well, to me, it's an achievement. And it's something that I want to honor, and more so, not even just for me, but for the people who follow. Because if that was the case, if I had nobody that was following me, then I'd literally be talking to myself. And if I was talking to myself, so be it. But the point of the matter is that as much as I love doing this, but I do this for the people and for the tribe that hopefully continue to build throughout the days, weeks, months, and years ahead, God willing. I mean, that's what I do it for. Because I feel as if with the way the world is now, and I get it, that information is at everybody's fingertips, and there's so many different sources and resources that you could go to get your information. But I know in my heart of hearts that what it is that I do on a day in, day out basis, especially for the channel or even stuff that I post on TikTok, I try to do that daily, which is pretty much just a mirror image of what I do here on YouTube. But the bottom line is that I want it to be as transparent, but also very entertaining, informative, and on top of that, more importantly, is to be credible, because I'm not about the clickbait titles. I'm not about trying to say something just to say it or to have to backtrack and be like, oh, no, I didn't mean it that way. No. What I've said in this space, I've meant from the bottom of my heart and from my gut. So I'm not saying anything that's off base. I'm not saying anything that's off kilter. I'm not saying anything that's would certainly raise a red flag or you'd make you have a bunch of question marks like, yo, like, what is he saying? Or no, I'm not doing that. And I will continue to have that integrity. I will continue to have what I honor as someone who has not gone the traditional way through the business of going to a college, getting a communications degree, working up the ranks, whether it be a PA and then a board op and then a producer and then to host my own show. And I get it. There's a bunch of people like me that are out there that are trying to do their own thing and YouTube, and God bless them. And that's great. And I want everybody to win, as everybody knows, if you've watched, listened, etc., over the last 7 years plus. But to me, all I can do is control what I can control, what it is that I put forth and put out there. And that's even whether professionally here or even personally. The stuff that I put on my Instagram in particular, which obviously as of late, things are starting to get a little bit better. I can start to see the sun coming through the clouds, but February was a difficult month for yours truly. But now that I'm slowly coming out of it, and especially with the month closing today, and it's interesting because today is also Ramadan. Can I just mention this? Now, I'm not Muslim by any stretch, but even the fasting, which I usually fast from 8 p.m. to 12 noon, I've actually thought about doing that in reverse to fast throughout the day and then go ahead and eat, of course, when it's sundown and before sunrise. But no, I'm not going to go as far as that. But those are some of the things that I'm doing in the month of March to challenge myself and to just be better in the process. As long as you bring perspective to the sports world, it's always refreshing. Nike, I appreciate that, brother. And I know you're always on top of my YouTube videos and on top of especially the podcast. You're always posting. I always see that whenever I look at my metrics and I see that first view within literally the first hour of posting the podcast, you always got something to say. And trust me, man, it goes without saying how much I appreciate that. And yes, so whenever down the road, if I'm hosting a live event somewhere, which I'm going to get to one day, I'm going to get to that. Hey, my guy, Jonathan, congrats. Now, Jonathan, I'm going to come back tomorrow. So let me just post this real quick. And yes, thank you so much for hopping on board. Jonathan was part of the live stream there on Wednesday. So officially tomorrow, March 1st, 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. I don't know what you got cooking. Hopefully you have a few minutes to jump in, but as I detailed before, and I'll rehash one last time before I sign off, I said 6:30, but since you jumped on board, I want to spend a few minutes and watch. If people start coming on board here in the chat, then I'm going to have to stay put. I'm just not going to say, all right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Although, of course, we'll have 5 hours to spend with one another. But yes, Jonathan, we're going to, of course, celebrate. We'll go full circle on the 7 years, what it was like that first day, posting that very first podcast on this or on that day tomorrow, 7 years ago, and what it's meant. And it's been a journey. It's been great. It's been fun. And you'd be surprised by some of the things I have to say about it too. And mind you, this also includes going through COVID 2020 when we had no sports from the middle of March till about what? Late July when baseball opened up their 60-game season. And then, of course, you had the NBA and Stanley Cup playoffs right after that. where we didn't crown a champion until September and then even early October for the NBA. So, yeah, remember, I had to go through that, and I was coming up with content real quick. I know that the Last Dance was huge. The ESPN documentary on the Chicago Bulls, the back-to-back dynasties there in the 90s, and the whole angle between MJ, Scotty, Phil Jackson, even prior to that. So, if we find, yeah, oh, hey, bring them on. 5 hours tomorrow, you got Mets baseball questions, and you know what? I'll have Mets baseball answers. So we're all good in that regard. But yes, we'll talk about the journey. I'll have a couple of guests on as well, as I talked about before. One confirmed in the 5:30 time slot. So looking forward to that. I'm going to have somebody from the Sporting News jump on board, and we're going to talk a little baseball too. So we'll certainly get into a little bit of the baseball season, as obviously the exhibition season has been well underway. And also I have a couple of giveaways too, which will be fun. Looking forward to that. And yes, we'll just have a good time, back and forth banter. I'll put your comments, of course, up here at the bottom of the screen for everybody to read, everybody to chime in. And that's how I want it to be, interactive. I've always wanted to have it that way. And it's even better now because unlike, let's say, Instagram, or I don't even know, I've never been on TikTok to do a live. And I know a lot of people do lives on TikTok. And funny enough, I could actually start doing lives, because I know you have to reach a certain threshold in order to do that. But knowing that I had this platform and I could post people as far as their questions and what they have to say, as opposed to just streaming through the chat room and just kind of not saying it's being forgotten, but they're not being highlighted. And obviously I want to highlight you guys and gals for whatever it is you have to say. And hopefully you don't have anybody jumping in and, you know, acting stupid or saying demeaning comments. Obviously we won't have that. I'm not going to tolerate that, because obviously I want this to be a good space, fun space. I mean, listen, if it's going to be back and forth as far as saying, your Mets aren't going to do anything this year, oh, you know, Yankees will kill the Mets or whatever, that's fine. You know, as long as it doesn't get personal, I have no problems, because everybody knows when people are going to try to attack my teams that I like, I'm going to be ejected. They're not going to hurt my feelings if they say, oh, your pitching staff is terrible. You only got Kodai Senga if he stays healthy, and who else you got on your rotation? Clay Holmes? Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, did you say that? What am I going to tell you? Listen, am I going to get pumped up, pump my chest out for Clay Holmes because he had an inning that he pitched the other day? I believe he was perfect. Struck out 3 guys. Listen, I'm not going to break out the blue and orange pom-poms to think that, oh, the Mets are going to have, especially their rotation, they're going to have a big year this year. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say it like it is, and I'll always do that. And, right, people can try to tweak me all you want, and they try to say, oh, Mets this, or Celtics that, or the Islanders are terrible, or the Steeler quarterback situation has just got awful, and Georgetown got off to a great start. Now they're 16-13. You can say all that. It's not going to bother me. So, yeah, I mean, obviously I don't want to get anything more elevated than that, and it shouldn't, because we're here to have a good time. We're here to have fun, back and forth, friendly banter, questions, comments, whatever it may be, and that's all I want it to be. And then you have the guests that come in, and we could get into that as well. And that's what I'm looking forward to, and I hope you're looking forward to doing the same day tomorrow between 2 to 7. And that's the good thing about it too, because I have that 7-hour window, or excuse me, that 5-hour window, 2 to 7, to where I can do a myriad of things, and obviously engage throughout the course of that time, and obviously be present and be involved with your discussions, because unlike maybe other live streams, and let me tell you something, even if it gets to a point where I have tens, dozens, and hey, who knows, maybe one day even over 100 or hundreds of people that are chiming in, I'm going to try to still interact with everybody. I know it'll be difficult because the comments will just be flowing like a faucet, but you know what? This is what I signed up for. And just because starting out here with these live streams and being able to boost the platform and try to elevate it and try to get the word out to people and increase the visibility of this podcast and this platform and the channel in particular, yes, I mean, this is all part of it. So I am not looking for a scenario where, yes, to make it simple or to simplify it or to make it comforting. No, I want it to be a thing where I'm going all in, and I have gone all in, and I want everybody out there to see that with their own eyes and ears that, yes, I'm doing this because I love to do it, and I love to engage with anybody and everybody that crosses my paths, whether it be here digitally, see if I can enunciate better, or if they happen to chime in via video, bring them on as a guest, etc. So this is what it's all about, at least for me, because if you do or do not know, I've been doing this now over a year full time. I love it. And I'll save a little bit of that for tomorrow, but I love it. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Just to be able to have the freedom to do that, to have all the options and all the different things. And it's a lot. It is a lot to carry. It's a big burden, because if it was just turning on the camera and letting it rip for an hour or an hour and a half, 2 hours, whether it's a live stream or a recorded podcast, fantastic. But everybody knows it's the social media, and to try to market, and to try to get sponsorships, and to try to get backing and financial, and trying to, of course, earn a living doing this, which obviously is not for the weary. It's not for the weak. And I knew what I was getting into. I knew that this was going to be a situation where I'm going to have to really bear down and do the best that I can. And Lord knows, not every day has been coconuts and palm trees, because, again, it's a lot to navigate and a lot to get through in order to be able to be successful, in order to do this and try to generate income as well. And I don't want to just make it all about that, but again, this is about the process, about the journey, which of course I'll unpack a little bit more then tomorrow. I see Nike at, let's see, Mets have a better year than last year. It'll be fun. Well, that's a good one, Nike. What do you think? If a better year than last year, that means they have to get to a World Series, or they get to a Game 7 in the NLCS, because that's how I would deem it better than last year. Because think about this. Now, 3 years ago, how time flies. In 2022, the Mets won 101 games. They were in first place pretty much the whole year up until they got to that next to last series of the year against Atlanta. We all know what happened, not to bring up bad memories. But they got swept out of Atlanta, lost first place, and got the wild card. And we know what happened. They had to play the Padres. They lost 2 out of 3, and therefore they were done. So to think, the Mets actually had their second best regular season in franchise history, dating back to 1962. And all they got then was a wild card appearance and a wild card exit at home against the Padres. Now, if you would have told me in 2023 anything better than that, then that means, all right, they would have got to a division series. When now, this year, it's either Game 7 and beyond, because anything short of that is you're going to feel empty. And that's the one thing let's bring this up real quick. Talk about the Mets here. And Jonathan, if you're still on, a little perspective. Last year's run obviously came out of nowhere. And those are the best types of seasons or playoff runs that you could, yeah, my lips are God. Yeah, exactly. I'll put that up there for you, Nike. Those are the best runs to witness, because there are no expectations. There isn't that ceiling of, all right, we did so well this year, now we have to get to a championship series. As evidence is 2022, when we were in first place the whole year and granted wild card, but I'm sure before the Padres series, people were thinking, all right, we got the Padres, we're in our building, I know they're going to be tough, blah, 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 whatever, but all right, division series, we'll move on from there, and let's see where it goes. And I'm sure a lot of Met fans, yours truly included, considering we were in first place the whole year, and with that, we should have had a bye and therefore hosted in the divisional series to have home field advantage. And as we know, it didn't happen. They had home field in the wild card and lost in 3 games. So there were expectations that year based on the regular season that they had. But as we know, last year, because they got slow out of the gate and then it bottomed out there after the Dodgers swept the Mets right after, it was right during Memorial Day week, where, what was it, Jorge Lopez threw his glove in the stands, and they had lost 3 in a row, and then from that point on, they turned their season around. And, of course, as you know, had the best record from, I believe, June 1st through the end of the year. And all of the big hits and the big moments that they got, especially in the month of September, whether it was Lindor snapping that no-hitter in Toronto in the 9th inning with a home run to tie, and they scored 5 runs after that to win in Toronto, a game that they absolutely had to win, and they did. And then, of course, let's fast forward to the end of the month. Obviously, the doubleheader in Atlanta, and even prior to that, they had to win that game in Milwaukee, where Dave Peterson pitched a shutout, and they needed that game in the worst way to get to Monday. And when they had to play the Braves, of course, that was the makeup from early in the week. They had to play a doubleheader, which was weird. But the heroics of Lindor, after they took the lead there in the top of the 8th inning, and then the Braves scored what? I believe it was 3-0, and then it was 6-3, and then they scored 4 runs to make it 7-6, and then Lindor hit the 2-run homer there in the top of the 9th, and then Diaz had to hang in there. Edwin to pull out the save, and he threw, I forgot how many pitches, 30 some odd pitches in those inning and a third or inning and 2/3, whatever it was. So for that, and then Alonso, and then Vientos, I mean, everything that happened in the postseason, I mean, that run was magical. You couldn't make it up. And that's why when they lost to the Dodgers in the 6th game, Mr. Met, yes, we popped out there for Nancy, one of her all-time favorites. I'll leave it right there. But with the ride that the Met fan was on last year and how they won these games and how they were just euphoric in these wins, I mean, you couldn't even make it up to know that whether it was the Lindor game in Atlanta, the Game 3 Alonso heroics against the Brewers, Game 1 where Zach Wheeler was mowing us down through 7 innings, and then they scored the 5 runs in the 8th. Vientos, even with the 2-run home in the 9th, where they tied the game and then ended up losing. The Lindor grand slam in the game that closed out the division series. And then even the Dodgers, I get it that they won that 2nd game in LA and then they were down 3-1, but they showed some pride. They went out fighting. Pete Alonso golfs that home run there over the right center field fence, 3-0, and the Mets went going away, even though it got a little dicey there later on in the game, but at least they didn't have the Dodgers celebrate at Citi Field to close out their season. And then they went to LA and we saw what happened. And that was it. But it was a run that you were satisfied with, where now this year, you're right, Nike, it all clicked together. Where this year, there's similar expectations, even more expectations because you have Soto in the lineup. But that rotation, listen, unless they get somebody at the deadline, if there's a guy that's out there, and I know we talked about this a couple days ago, where maybe a guy like Jordan Montgomery, I think Jonathan had brought that up, which I thought was pretty good. And I don't know if the Arizona Diamondbacks would want Starling Marte, but there's a guy, and I know somebody was trying to throw some rumors about, how about if the Mets traded Brett Beatty to the Yankees for Marcus Stroman? I want no part of Marcus Stroman. I do not. And nothing personal. I just don't want Stroman. Don't want him. And obviously, it wasn't Met there, as you know, from 2019. He skipped 2020, and then he pitched a little bit in 2021. And then, obviously, left to go to Chicago, and now he's with the Yankees, and who knows if he's even going to stay there, considering he looks like he may be the odd man out. But the rotation is critical because maybe in the regular season, they could piecemeal it together and maybe get lightning in a bottle like they did last year with Severino, who's now in Sacramento, and Sean Manaea with what he did. And obviously he's hurt, so who knows what his status is going to be come opening day. And obviously with a guy like Jose Quintana, who the Mets could still re-sign here. That's all throwing a pitching staff. No, yeah, exactly. So you have all these scenarios with the staff and the bullpen. Listen, I know AJ Minter, he's a good addition. Tanner Scott would have been nicer, and I understand he would have cost more, but again, he would have cost more money. But at the same time, I got you. I figured you were mentioning Stroman there, Nike. I appreciate that. Yeah, I can see where Minter's an upgrade, but still, the Sean Reed Foleys of the world, and I mean, listen, I mean, they're serviceable arms, but if your rotation is going to go 5 innings and the bullpen's going to have to carry the rest of the load, and I get it, this isn't 1970s, 1980s baseball to where pitchers are going to go into the 7th inning or at least into the 8th inning to where you just may need a couple of relievers there to close you out. I understand that, but you got to have these guys eat up some innings. You got to have some length. You got to have guys go at least 6, maybe even get into the 7th. And it's not going to be sustainable for Carlos Mendoza to roll out these guys day in and day out to carry the mail throughout the course of the season. And then you have to kind of maybe not save them for the postseason, but you're going to have to manage your bullpen to the point where you don't want to burn them out. You don't want to get to a scenario where, all right, you may get reinforcements by the trade deadline in the latter part of July. But, yeah, that's the thing about baseball in 2025. It's not a situation where you're going to have starters that are going to go deep in the games. In fact, I love how Ron Darling says, and he said it many years ago, 7 innings is the new 9 innings, is the new complete game. And it's unfortunate. That's the way baseball is now. Everything's about the pitch count. Everything's about stressful pitches in innings. So even if a guy's cruising along in the first 3 innings and he's thrown, let's say he's thrown 39 pitches, but now in the 4th inning he gets into trouble and he's thrown 26 pitches. So, right, he's at 65 pitches in the 4th inning. So you already know the manager's thinking, all right, well, I got 35 pitches to work with, and you only hope to get 2 more innings out of it. So, I mean, this is what we're dealing with. in this day and age, and I get you got to protect these guys' arms, whatever. And a lot of it has to do with how these pitchers are groomed in the, forget about even minor leagues, even going to high school, through college, if they go that far, and then single A, it's just, and listen, I'm far from a scout or from a GM or anything like that. Yeah, exactly. James said it best. They definitely need another guy because Senga, which right now you think is going to be your opening day starter, number one. Manaea, I mean, and I'm just going to go by the guys that, even if they're not healthy, but Manaea, Dave Peterson, you also have Tyler McGill and Clay Holmes. Forget about Frankie Montas. He's on the shelf right now. I mean, I talked about that a little bit on Wednesday. So you have those 5 guys. All right, Senga, if he's healthy and with that wicked ghost pitch that he has, all right, fine, because he misses bats. And that's what you need in a starting pitcher. You need a guy that's going to miss bats. Now, hopefully he could control his walks because he's a guy that walks the ballpark. And he does have control issues because he thinks that a lot of these guys are going to go attack that off-speed pitch. So therefore, he gets in trouble or maybe behind the count. And the next thing you know, he's got runners on base and he's in a heap of trouble. So for Senga, who I believe in and I think is a very good pitcher, but yes, he a 1? I don't think so. He's more of a 2, maybe even 3. And granted that he's being paid what? $15 million a year. And I know that's bargain basement compared to what a lot of these other pitchers get. But yes, their rotation right now, I am not in love with it. And just like I wasn't in love with it last year, and yes, they overachieved and so on and so forth, but can you get a repeat performance? Can you have some good juju and maybe sprinkle some pixie dust in the locker room there to maybe get a little bit of what we got last year in that rotation back here in 2025? They're going to need it. And their bullpen scares me too. But anyway. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Let's see, 6:47. All right, I'll spend a couple more minutes before I say a bit adieu. So again, you know the time tomorrow, 2 to 7. I'm glad that this setup is working. I'll bring this setup for tomorrow because I know the webcam that I have is good, 1080p, but I'm using my Sony. My Sony is really good, and I'm sure it's coming in through crystal clear, as I can see here on my screen down here. But I have a whole setup. I'll have an extra screen, which I got to charge tonight, because I got to have another one to offset what I have here, because I may even show some, not slides, but I may have some things to show similar to what I did the other day when we're talking about standings. And who knows, if I have to pull up stats, I'll have to show that, even though I may not have a magnifier deal like to zoom in to see when it comes to stats. If we start talking stats and things of that nature, or whatever is on your mind tomorrow, I will get into it, because like I said, without you guys and gals, there'd be no me. Nobody knows who Jay Reels is, and there's still a zillion other people that don't, and that's fine. But again, it goes without saying how much I truly appreciate your support, passing by, carving out precious time out of your day, etc., to listen to me, to watch me twice a week on the YouTube channel, or if you do follow me on socials. Again, it goes a long way. All right, so with that being said, I won't babble any further. Let's just pull this up for one last thing. Of course, the chat room is going to be live tomorrow. I just want to throw this up there. Please comment in the chat tomorrow. I'll highlight, follow up, whatever. Also, tell your family, friends, foes, frenemies, or into sports, like sports, etc. And again, if they even want to jump on board for a few minutes just to support, I would sincerely, gratefully appreciate that. We'll also talk about what's happening in sports. We'll get into that a little bit. And also, I'll throw this question out there too. Yes or no in the comments. Whether you do that now or not, that's fine. But I'm going to save that even more so for tomorrow. I would expect more people to jump on board. And if not, that's fine. I'll still post it there as well. But with all that being said, people, again, looking forward to tomorrow, 2 p.m. sharp. I'll be live, direct, and in full effect here on the live stream and, of course, on my YouTube channel. So share it with everybody, and I'll make sure to, of course, post a link, whether it be tonight or even first thing tomorrow, to get it out to everybody if you want to forward it. Again, highly appreciated. So I will shut up and move on. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. See you guys tomorrow between 2 and 7, hopefully more so at 2. But if not, if you're in and out throughout the course of the afternoon into the evening, I would sincerely and be thankful for that. So with that being said, people, I will check you out tomorrow. And as always, not only coming live correct, but also in full effect, 2 p.m. See you there. And until then, on the flip.